20 years ago, it was meant to happen. The British Touring Car Championship was supposed to return to support the 2004 British Grand Prix after being absent since 1996, but that didn't take place. It would have been returned to a tradition that began during the very first BTCC season in 1958, when a non-championship round supporting the British Grand Prix was organised. That day, Stirling Moss won the Formula 1 race, and someone involved in the eventual removal of the BTCC from its F1 support slot was entered as a reserve driver, one Bernie Ecslestone, who will feature a bit later. In an interview with Marcus Simmons of Autosport around a year ago, BTCC boss Alan Gow spoke about bringing the British Touring Car Championship back onto the Formula 1 bill for the Grand Prix. The floated idea would see the British Touring Car Championship run on the Thursday and Friday of the Grand Prix weekend. It seems that F1 doesn't have a slot large enough on a Saturday or Sunday to fit the BTCC into. One easy way for the Grand Prix to make more money, though, would be to see the BTCC run on a Thursday afternoon practice with a couple of races on Friday. There has been Thursday running for sports in the recent past, and a decent crowd already gets into the venue for the live Sky F1 show, so we'll get to why and how it could work soon. But first, a bit of history concerning Formula 1 and the BTCC. That first season of the series, which was then known as the British Saloon Car Championship, featured 9 rounds, but there were a number of non-championship races, one of which was on the bill of the British Grand Prix. The winner was an American, Walt Hansen, who would go on to race at Le Mans and in IndyCar, NASCAR and Formula 1. 2 years later, it was back again as a non-championship race with some bloke called Colin Chapman winning. I think he had something to do with Lotus winning a load of F1 titles or something. From 1962 at Aintree, yes, the Grand National place, and then between Silverstone and Brands Hatch thereon, it became a permanent fixture on the F1 support bill, and from 1966 it would be a full championship round. Things continued like that through the 60s and 70s. In 1985 it was double duty, with the second race supporting the European Grand Prix at Brands Hatch. In 1987 the British Saloon Car Championship became the British Touring Car Championship, and then the 90s came, and Super Touring. 1993 saw double duty once again, the European Grand Prix at Donington Park, the race where Senna pulled off those 5 moves on the first lap and then dominated. On the same day in the BTCC, in far worse track conditions, Tim Harvey in a Renault 19 went from 14th to first to win. But there's something about 1993. The crowd that day wasn't massive for a Grand Prix, and was still drying out, which would also be the case at Silverstone for the British GP later that season. The loss of Nigel Mansell to IndyCar hit F1 hard in the UK, but Nigel did appear in the country at the end of the season, in the British Touring Car TOCA Shootout, also at Donington, which was held on Halloween, and that crowd was bigger than the F1 race at the same venue earlier in the year. It wasn't just our Nigel though, crowds at every round were now huge. The BTCC was becoming massive, and their TV deal with BBC kept the series in the forefront of the British public's mind, alongside Formula 1 on the channel. But after the 1996 meeting, the first to feature 2 British touring car races, the deal was over, with Formula 1 moving to ITV and touring cars remaining on BBC. There, the partnership was ended. Bernie Ecslestone, that field driver from the first year of their BTCC F1 tie-up, he could have made it work if he wanted to, and he could have kept the traditional support slot that the fans loved, but he saw the British Touring Car Championship as a bit of a threat, but not to Formula 1. Bernie was now the promoter of ITC, what had been the DTM, but had become International Touring Cars, which incidentally failed at the end of that season. He didn't want British touring cars to profit off the back of Formula 1, considering the level of manufacturing involvement. Plus, BTCC was going in a different direction, which meant that it was a tool for him, because a court case over FIA TV deals stemming from truck racing was upcoming, and the less championships at odd with them would be their advantage, and that spills over into the FIA GT Championship, which is a tale for another day. After the split, the BTCC went through the death of Super Touring and into the BTC and S2000 era. This led to a Grand Prix return in 2004 for the championship. The deal meant that some European teams would also enter the round, with the main race to be held on the same day as the F1 race. Touring car gaffer Alan Gow announced 2 months before the meeting, though, that the deal was off, because a couple of the bigger teams decided that the costs were too much. It was a gut punch, and it pushed the idea of touring cars return to a slot support in the British Grand Prix into the long grass. If the opportunity came back, would F1 be prepared to be at the mercy of a couple of BTCC teams? Don't think so. Now, when the subject was broached about the BTCC return to the support slot for Formula 1 at Silverstone, it caused a bit of a kerfuffle. Many reasons why it could not work were thrown around, both within the paddock and via fans being enthusiastic with sharing their opinions online. Costs, timetable, and the circuit layout, and paddock space are some of the main talking points. For the BTCC, it undoubtedly would be an excellent exposure, but the initial suggestion did not include any Saturday or Sunday running. But even then, there's a decent-sized crowd on site by Wednesday night, and the Friday of the Grand Prix has a crowd that matches or is greater than many race days at BTCC meetings. Silverstone boss Stuart Pringle has actually stated he'd love some Thursday on-track action, similar to how the Australian Grand Prix runs as a 4-day event. Because the circuit is trying to maximise income and they're at the limit of that now, and a Thursday with non-FIA track action would allow the venue to earn a bit more. I think a Thursday and Friday special ticket for touring car fans would get a few more feet through the gates, and in my case a bit more media, on those two quieter days. Running from what is now the heritage bits with Formula 2, Formula 3 and the Super Cup would be no problem. The chances being that teams wouldn't bring their full hospitality setup. Instead, they'd probably utilise hospitality that's already in place instead, with the touring car circuit and paddock cleared out on a Friday night before the big crowds arrive for Saturday and Sunday. Costs are another talking point. Go back to the old days. Do the same as what it started out with by running a non-championship round. That means that drivers who don't have the budget can surrender the car to other drivers who want to race at the event. One British touring car driver told me earlier that they believed actually adding the British Grand Prix and giving sponsors a bit of an F1 treatment would lead to being able to negotiate deals that would secure a full season far more easily than it is for just the standard 10 round. And there are plenty of races outside the BTCC would pay the premium to race a touring car on an F1 bill too. A couple of cost reduction ideas have been suggested, with the parameters mooted would be related to running a 90-minute test session on the Thursday at Silverstone, plus a qualifying in the first race, with the second race on Friday. Not the usual 3-race weekend. And one offset could be the permanent removal of the mid-season British touring car test that usually occurs during 6 weeks summer break. It didn't run in 2024 due to Goodyear being happy with their tyre, but it has been a tradition over the years. The circuit layout is another concern. There's a belief that perhaps the Silverstone Grand Prix layout is unsuitable for touring car racing because field spread would become a factor. At 0.6 of a mile longer than the Snedden layout used in the BTCC, it may result in cars falling away from one another. Perhaps that might be true, but over a 20 to 25 minute race in British touring cars, no matter the length of the track, the lead pack is usually even matched and there's always action to be found. As for TV and timetable, fitting in a British touring car race is easily achievable with the current Friday timetable for a Grand Prix weekend, and as a non-championship round, put it live on Sky Sports with a decent highlights package on ITV the following week. It would be achievable if people aren't being stubborn. To me, it's a no-brainer from both the perspective of British touring cars and Formula 1. Extra entertainment for the fans on a Grand Prix weekend from a professional series, that would be good from their point of view. On our side, exposure to a larger crowd and an interested TV audience would trickle down, expanding the British touring car fan base. What are your thoughts on the subject? Type them below just after you've liked and subscribed, Cheers!